morning, everybody.
I'm Melissa.
I'm Ashley. I just realized that we don't
ever
that.
say that. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like.
But I also feel like we should because some people see
Right.
another episode before. Oh, well, hi.
Yeah.
How's everybody? You just brought that to my attention. So we have been talking about forgiveness. We've been walking through, steps of forgiveness, the journey of forgiveness. And today we're really going to focus on the word resentment. And diving deep into that. And this may be an interesting topic for us because if you've also been watching some of the previous episodes, we've been going through a book, The Forgiving What You Can't Forget. And she has a chapter on resentment, but it's specifically geared towards resentment with God. And so we're going to take a little spin on that today. We're going to use some of the things she said, but we're also going to have our own kind of take on resentment. Yeah. So, it's kind of where we're at today. Episode number 7.
Yes.
Woo, we're just trucking along.
I know, we
I
are.
love
It's great.
So, to start off, just kind of diving into it, I wanted to start by asking you the question. So, what do you think the word resentment is, or what do you think resentment just is in general?
So, my personal definition would be like a festering of hornets inside, just ready to come out and sting at any moment. Anybody that's in range. Because at that point, it doesn't matter who it is. Like for me, even though I had resentment toward one person or one situation, by the time it had consumed me, everybody looked the same. Like there was no difference between you and the one that I had those ill feelings about. Everybody was the same, and it didn't matter. And I mean, it mattered, big time
because it was affecting
every area, because I then internalized it and didn't like myself either. Like it was everybody all the time.
And I know, so with myself and resentment, I feel like the biggest area of my life where I have experienced resentment was in my marriage, which I feel like, most people who are married that are watching this, I mean, I could be wrong, but have probably experienced, which I know you and I just talked about, but you probably experienced resentment in your marriage because, when you're with somebody all the time, you live with them, you share a space with them, your lives are like, coherent together.
Right.
It's very easy to become resentful towards somebody because, you are assuming that they're going to do what you want them to do. You want them to be like you. And so when they're not fulfilling that role, that's where resentment comes in.
Yes.
And so I know for myself, I hit a period of time, which I know I've talked about in past episodes, where I was working full time, doing all these things. And as a woman with our complex minds, and we're thinking 1,000 miles a minute.
Yeah.
And when I'm like, during the day, I can get up and take care of kids, and I can go work 9 hours a day, and I can come home and I can cook dinner, and I can, give the kids a bath, and I'm working like 3 full-time jobs, even though I'm only getting paid for one. But essentially,
that's true.
That's just how my life is working. And excuse me. But then it's like, if I can do all that, then why is he not doing more?
Correct. Yep.
And so for a while, that was my mindset is why am I doing this, and this, and this, and you're working.
Yeah.
And then it was like, I just had all this built up resentment, which was essentially tearing my marriage apart.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
We were fighting more because of it.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's really just what it was. Is I was unhappy because he was not doing what I wanted him to do.
Correct.
And it took a lot of humbling myself to realize I really had to learn he is not me.
Right.
His brain does not function like mine.
Right.
And so for a man, like who is the breadwinner of a home, making the money and financially supporting and the protector for the family.
Right.
That is what they pour all of their energy and efforts into.
Right.
So while I have all this like feminine energy where I'm like, go, 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 do, I got to take care. Like, okay, that's great for me. But for him, when he works 9 to 10 hours a day and he has for 9 or 10 hours poured all of his energy and efforts into his job,
Right.
then his mind doesn't work the same. Like when he's done with work, he's ready to just unwind.
Sure.
And so for me to have all these expectations that he's going to do what I'm
Wow,
going to
yeah,
do. So
yeah,
my resentment
yeah.
truly was coming from a place that didn't necessarily make sense.
Right.
And it was just kind of that
Wow.
equalizing area. Like,
Yeah.
we're equal. We're both working full-time
Yes.
jobs. We should both be doing the
Right.
same thing.
Yes.
So it just took a lot of learning and understanding that men and women are very different.
Right.
And
Wow.
we did end up sitting and talking about, like that's where I learned where, when he was done with work, where his mind was, is he just
Right.
wanted to enjoy the family, like the family company.
Right. Yeah.
It was not his priority to go load the dishwasher. His priority was to just see the kids.
Right.
Because he
But
didn't
your
see them.
mind was, my house is a mess and I got
Yes,
to keep it
help
up. And
me,
Right,
like that kind of
right.
thing. So,
Wow,
anyways,
okay.
all of that to say, there was a lot of resentment in my marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, like I said, a lot of fighting, there was not a lot of intimacy happening. Just like we
Sure.
wouldn't hold hands, we wouldn't
Sure.
hug, because it was just like,
Yeah.
I'm mad at you.
Right.
Just all the time.
Yes.
So, thankfully, we are not in that position
Thank
anymore.
God. Well, the
Thank
key
you.
is what you said, communication.
Yes.
If
Communication,
you, imagine
understanding.
had you had not had that conversation,
Right.
you'd been divorced by now, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, because that was definitely in my mindset. Was like I could go find somebody
Yeah,
else who's
right.
going to reality.
You're not gonna, but yeah.
yeah. No, I mean I truly.
But true, yeah. Wow.
But then like now our marriage is wonderful, and it's just the
Yeah.
small moments of when I learned him. Now we've been together for I guess this year's 9 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I try and pay attention to his mannerisms and his behavior.
Sure.
And so I've started learning, like, okay, if he's sitting on the couch a certain way,
You know
this
what that
is what
means.
he's this is his unwinding time.
Yes.
So all of that to say,
Yes.
how she was talking about resenting God in this chapter, and all I could think, because fortunately in my life, I don't believe or feel like I have ever resented God. I've always been quick to blame myself in situations.
Right.
Like if something unfortunate has happened in my life, or I've been put in a situation, I've always been quick to blame myself, because I'm human and
Yep.
I make mistakes and I'm a sinner.
Yep.
And so instead of blaming God, like that's just how my mind has
Right.
always worked.
Right.
And so I just try and think in this chapter, if someone, because I do know people question God. I know that.
Sure.
And
Yeah,
I have
yeah.
even heard people say, well, if God's so good and so holy, then why did he, I've
Right.
heard that.
Yes.
So, for somebody who is experiencing that resentment, all I can think about is, if I was resenting my husband the way I was and it was destroying my marriage, then if you're resenting God for what you believe is him not fulfilling his side of the story,
Right.
then what does that bring to your life?
Right.
Because resentment, I believe, is just,
It's that feeling.
Satan,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
Satan attacking
Yeah.
to really make you question.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, that was just my biggest question is, if that's what it caused for my marriage, what would it possibly bring to my life if I was questioning and resenting God in that way?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll stop talking for a moment.
No, well, what you said was very eye-opening, about your husband's mindset on, when he comes home. I don't know, like I never thought of it like that, and I'm pretty good to think of both sides, but I don't know how the male mind works. I
Right.
often wonder, if it really does. So, I just didn't take that into account. But I'm going to definitely start to, maybe ask different questions, better questions, I just assume that everybody is thinking like, we'd be in trouble, wouldn't we? But, I never really... I feel like when I was younger, a teenager, early teenager, like 13, maybe 14, I remember being outside on the sidewalk and angry at God, but I don't remember why. You were 13, 14,
Yeah.
there's no telling, really. Something stupid, no doubt. My hair turned out wrong or whatever, I don't know. But that was the one and only time that I remember being angry like that. But again, I don't remember what it was about. And it was very short-lived. But as I got older, I would find people leaving my life, or, I was trying to build relationships and I felt like God was pulling those people away. And I'm like, what are you doing? And I would question, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I thought we were supposed to have community and, all the things, and you didn't want us to be alone.
And questioning is okay, I believe. Yeah.
Right. Well, you got your doubting Thomas in the Bible. I mean, everybody does, and doubt is all right, because if you're not doubting, then you're not questioning.
See, that's
right.
funny. So you saying that phrase, when I was a teenager or a preteen, so probably about 13, I remember, because I was saved at a very early age, about 5, 6 years old. And when I was 13, I remember asking all these questions like, how do we know that God is real? Like, how do we really know?
Right.
Like, we're putting a lot of faith in something that we're not sure of, kind of thing. And I remember distinctly asking my dad these questions. And I specifically remember asking the question, because this is me as a 13-year-old girl, and I said, isn't it kind of selfish that there's like this being out there that all he wants us to do is live for him? And I was asking those questions.
Yeah.
And then I just kept asking and doubting. It's like, how do we know? How do we know? And then I was like, but how do I know I'm really saved? I'm like, how do I know? Because I'm like, if I could, if I'm going to believe in God, there's really no negative to that, because if me believing in Him when I die, I'm going to heaven.
Right.
So, anyways, I was trying to like rationalize all this stuff in my head.
Sure.
And my dad looked at me and said, because when I kept like, oh, am I going to heaven? Am I going to heaven? And he said, well, you know what, Ashley, if you're sitting here having to question it, it shows how much you care.
Yeah.
And so you shouldn't worry, because you questioning your relationship and how things are going with your relationship with God.
Right.
That shows how much you believe in Him.
Yeah. And how important it is that you do it right.
Yes. Because when you're sitting there questioning these things, it is important to you. Just like here on earth, if you're questioning stuff, you're being inquisitive, you're trying to learn things, it's important to you. So I feel like it's very,
Yeah, you got to ask the questions, I you had said something. So you were talking about, like, you were coming home and expecting, help around the house as well, and he's wanting to relax or whatever. And I had wrote down that resentment really, it comes from our own unmet expectations that we have on somebody else. I expected him or her to do this, and they didn't.
Yeah.
And so now I'm upset, but I'm not going to tell you about it. I'm going to keep it to myself, My mom, my family, when I was growing up, when I was there and how I saw things, communication was not part of the relationship. I mean, now, they communicated. They said words, but not the right ones, Nobody ever sat down and said, why do you feel this way? Or what did I do? Or how can I fix it? Nothing, ever. And from that, I saw resentment build, divorces happen, hate spewed. I mean, all of it.
Yeah.
We have to stop putting what we think should happen out there, like what we want the outcome to be. It's not up to us. And it doesn't matter how much you put your hands on it. You're just going to screw it up more. Like, that's how I have found.
Well, and it is the same with your relationship with God. So it's like when you start questioning Him, because this is which I was showing you, I had some notes from a sermon, and the pastor was specifically talking about when we start questioning God and when we start thinking about, well, why is He allowing these things to happen in my life when He's so good and so holy? And it's like, okay, you really have to kind of pick apart your thoughts, because the way you're thinking about God in certain situations, is it really truly God?
Right.
Or is it a version of God that you have made up in your head that, because, okay, so kind of going back, he was talking about how every single religion or spiritual, any kind of study out in the world of all these different spiritual paths that people take, all of them have good things and all of them have bad things. All of them. It's not just Christianity and it's not just God. But a lot of times people will resent God or be angry at God because something has happened in their life that's so devastating they have to have somebody to blame.
Right.
But
yes.
in reality, it's all over the whole entire world in every situation because that's where Satan comes into play. You know,
Right,
like, it's
right,
not all
right,
God. So
right.
I don't know. It's just people, I do see it. And then when I heard that, I was like, I've never thought about it that way. The way we are thinking about God, even if you feel like you're good with God and you have a great relationship and you're talking to him often, still, the way you think about God, is it truly biblically sound God?
Right.
Or is it a version of God that you have put in your head and created from your human perspective?
Right.
So, like, when it comes to resentment and stuff with God, communication is key. Just like with what we were talking about with marriages and things like that and with your family.
Yeah.
You have to communicate with God.
Yeah.
And you have to dive into his word and learn about him and
Right.
figure out if what you're thinking, you know, especially like with forgiveness and going through forgiveness and knowing God and what he says in the Bible, like, you have to realize or come to the conclusion of what you're thinking is actually biblically sound
Right.
and not just your.
Is it really truth?
Yes, is it really true and not your truth? I'm sorry, that's a huge pet
Yeah,
peeve
you
of
don't
mine.
have a truth, I don't
Yeah,
think.
and it's like you can
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
your truth,
No.
not what you've experienced. What is actual truth?
Right, right. Not your perception.
Correct.
Right. Yeah. Because your perception does get misconstrued.
Yes.
Did I say that right? I don't know. That word.
Words.
I don't know if I said it right or not, but you know what I meant.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, I don't ever remember not believing in God. Like, I don't, to my knowledge, like, I was christened probably as a baby. Well, I was. But that's as far as that went, I think, you know.
Yeah.
And then as I got older and I had friends, I would go to church with my friends, you know, but it wasn't a consistent thing ever. And then when I moved here to Georgia, I was baptized, but I wasn't, I shouldn't have been. I mean, by all right. I mean, if you're going to be baptized, you need to be ready to do the walk.
Right. Yeah.
If you're not ready to do the walk, you're not ready to be baptized. So I was baptized at the wrong time. I was not ready, and it wasn't my will. Like, I wasn't against it. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Of course, I thought it was a good idea, but I was heartbroken because I knew that I wasn't changing anything that I was doing. You know. And so it really, I found myself depressed because now I have this, I've got to live up to it, and I wasn't ready for that yet.
You had an
know?
accountability that
Yes.
you weren't being accountable to.
Right.
Yeah.
And I didn't like it, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, years later, and just a few years ago, I rededicated myself and I baptized and all the things, and I didn't know you could do that. Like, I saw somebody do it and I was like, whoa, I didn't know that was a thing. I get a do-over. Cool. And so I did, but I don't ever remember not believing that there was a God. And I never questioned that. Like, I never asked myself, where'd that come from? Why do I think that? I don't know. So it had to have been in my background at some point somewhere. But I don't remember any of it, you know. And I certainly didn't see the Bible being lived out in my house, you know, in any of the houses that I lived in growing up. So, you know, if I ever found myself angry at God or trying to blame him for something, it never led to a good feeling, first of all.
Yeah.
But I remember talking to a girlfriend of mine and saying to her, you know, I just don't understand why he's like, these folks, I used to work with them, whatever, they don't reach out anymore. Like, what happened? I wonder why. Like, I've reached out and they're not coming back. I don't understand. Like, what did I do? Because, you know, I blame myself, right? And my friend said, you know, maybe God's protecting you from them. Oh, what? What a thing, right? And it changed my whole view.
Perspective is
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, driving in the car, like I'm in a hurry and, you know, I'm not saved when I'm in traffic. I don't know about you. I'm still working on it. But like I have learned, you know, what are you in a hurry for? You don't know what's up the road that maybe God's protecting you from.
Yeah.
Why don't you slow down a minute? Okay, sure. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good with that. And I really have learned how to slow down and wait, because if I go full force, I'm going to wreck right in the ditch, head on, you know. And he saves me from that, you know. I don't know.
I agree. Absolutely agree. And I know there was a quote, so with what we've been talking about, like that she put in this book that says, what makes faith fall apart isn't doubt, it's becoming too certain in the wrong things.
Yes.
And so it's like, yeah, I think that goes back to, like, how are you thinking about God from a biblical sense? And
Right.
are you believing and are you putting your trust in the right things?
Yep. Yep.
So, yes, I love that. And I know that there was this verse, like, I was telling, this is the verse that I read I think a week or two ago.
Yeah.
And I don't know why it made me cry. I think it's because I'm pregnant and it said something about moms in labor. I was like, oh my gosh. But in John chapter 16, verses 20 through 22, it says, truly I tell you, you will reap and mourn, but the world will rejoice. You will become sorrowful, but your sorrow will turn to joy. When a woman is in labor, she has pain because her time has come. But when she has given birth to a child, she no longer remembers the suffering because of the joy that a person has been brought into the world. So you also have sorrow now, but I will see you again. Your hearts will rejoice, and no one will take away your joy from you. And so I just like really resonated with that. Number one, because he talks about women being in labor,
Right.
and I was like, oh gosh,
Yeah, I gotta do it again.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But then also, yeah, because we do experience sorrow and resentment and weeping and all of these things. But then I really feel like, you know, it's okay to feel. We are humans.
Yes.
God allowed us to
Yes.
be here because he wants us to live a
Jesus
life.
felt.
Yes.
I mean,
Jesus wept. Jesus had all. And so it's just like, it's important to feel those things.
Yeah.
But we also need to just keep ultimately our eye on the prize and know
Right.
that where we are going, where we will end up, and that ultimately it will all be worth it. So, yeah, I hope that kind of was what we were talking about. That was just really on my mind.
Yeah. And I didn't forget the pains. But you know what? It just hit me because I've told you this before. Like,
Yeah.
I remembered all the pains
Yeah.
and still do. The thing, you'll do it again, though. I would have, if I was at the age,
Because you know what
I
the
would do it
outcome-
again, right?
Yeah, you know what
right.
the outcome is
I
going to
know
be.
the pain and the suffering that it's going to entail.
Yeah.
And not just the first 9 months.
Yeah.
Because there's a lifetime of it afterward.
Yeah.
But I would do it again because I know what it brings. I know the joy that it brings.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's right.
And so I just think, like, listening to that and then listening to what, you know, like what we were saying, I still stand strong on the fact that communication is key.
100%,
And I
yeah.
do feel like, because there was a time in my life where I went through communicating with God. Like, how do I do that?
Right.
You know, like,
Oh, yes.
that's a one-way conversation. I'm just talking to the
Right.
air. You know,
Right.
like,
Yeah.
it can kind of be hard.
Yeah.
And I completely understand that because I have definitely felt that. But I also can say that even though it may not be a physical voice coming back,
Right.
it's a couple of things. Like, one, if you're talking to God and being vulnerable and giving everything to him, it's a release from you.
Yes.
It really is. Because, like, you know, he is the most judge-free person.
Yes.
He is going to listen. He is going to take on your burden.
Yes.
And you can just, and like we've talked about, writing it down.
Yeah.
Write it down, burn it. And then, you know, I used to think that was silly. I was like, why are people doing that? And then, kind of like as a snooty, because I heard people writing
Yeah,
stuff down.
no,
like,
it
when I was
works.
in school, I was like, why are people doing that? That's so silly.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, like literally get it out of
Yeah.
your system.
Yeah.
Say what you need to say, and then do whatever with it. Rip it up, burn it,
That's
try
right.
like whatever.
Yeah.
And that's just releasing that. And I feel like talking to God, you know, and giving him everything. And yes, he may not respond to you with physical booming words like, oh, this is what you
Right.
should
But
do.
you will get an answer. You will
get
see
an
the
answer.
sign.
And I have felt it in many different ways. I felt it through a comforting peace.
Yep.
I felt it
Yep.
through opportunities being opened. Like,
Right.
I know when God's working in my life.
Yes.
And the more I talk to him on my human level,
Right.
the more he is giving to me on his
Yes.
spiritual level.
Yes.
And so I just feel like that's really important. So,
Yep. It is.
Yeah.
It is. And you're right. You know, I like to, you know, I don't talk to God like out loud because the devil can hear that. And I don't want him to know.
Yeah.
So I just, you know, mentally, because the devil can't hear my thoughts. He can hear my voice, but he can't hear my thoughts. So I keep all the good stuff right there, you know. And I give it to God. And like you said, it judge free. 100%, because he already knows.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. He
So
already
tell
knows
him
everything.
anyway,
Yeah.
because he already knows.
But I feel like if he already knows and you're saying it to him, it's almost like you admitting, or you, like I said, that release, like you're releasing it and like you are letting it go. Again, he already knows, so it's not like you're telling him anything where he's going back, what? What
Right.
did you, girl,
Right.
tell me that
Right.
again. Like, that is, he is not going to react
That's
that
right.
way.
That's right. That's right.
But, yeah,
right.
so it's just,
Right.
I love that.
Yeah. Now, yeah, that's so funny. Because there was a time where I thought that was the
That's
case.
how, yeah.
You know,
I understand.
He doesn't know all the things. Yeah, he really does. And the other thing is, it's okay. It's okay. There's, you know, and I've done some things, you know, nothing that I would say major, but you might think what I've done
Yeah.
is major. It's okay. Like, I don't know. I don't know. If you told somebody, or, okay, let's see. You spilled something on the sofa. And you didn't want nobody to know, so you flipped over the cushion or whatever. And then your mom found it, and then everybody got in trouble, and so now everybody's mad because everybody knows it was you.
Yeah.
You know, but they're not going to snitch on you neither. For me, it was like, okay, finally, I'll go tell that it was me. You know. Hated to do it, and I dreaded doing it because I was going to get in trouble some kind of way. But it made everybody else, she's now being held accountable.
Right.
And it's, you know, she's taking responsibility, and we're good. Now we can go on about our day. But you also felt better because it was out in the open.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, is that the feeling for you too?
Yeah,
like
no,
for
I
me,
agree.
you know,
100%.
and that's how I felt like talking to God and telling him all the things, you know. And I'm not gonna lie, you know, there's if I am his child, I'm gonna talk to him sometimes like I talk to my mom and dad. What do you mean? You know,
Yeah.
throwing my big hissy fit, I do. And he knows I'm gonna. And he's prepared.
I agree.
It's not, oh, gee, I had no idea she was going to react like that.
Yeah.
Sure you did.
Yeah.
Everybody knows she's going to react like that.
Yeah, if he knows every hair on our head, he knows how we're going to react in situations.
Yes.
I
Yes. But he also knows what it is we truly want. We don't know what we want. We think we do. So we ask for things or we pray for things or whatever, and they look different when he hands them to us, but they're better than you ever dreamt.
Right.
No matter what it is. Like it doesn't even have to be a big thing. Like even the small things are so much better.
I agree. Very well said. All right. Well, with all that being said, I hope everybody who listened to this today is able to have that communication in whichever part of your life, whether it is communicating with God about something in your life, or if you are going through forgiveness with somebody and you are harboring resentment, I pray for you
Yeah.
that you're able to communicate that and really work on resolving that, because it really will make a difference. So, but thank you for watching.
We hope you have a great day.
Yes, we do. We do. Have a great day, great week, great weekend, all
Yeah.
of the great 365.
Yeah.
Like all the days. And then we will see y'all next time on
Yes.
episode 8.
Bye.
Bye.